Guys, I've been on testosterone for almost a decade now, 10 years of administering hormone replacement therapy to address my diagnosed hypogonadism that I discovered when I was in a treatment-resistant depression back in 2012, which is a long time ago. And in that time, I have figured out exactly how this works for me. The dosage I need of my testosterone cypionate, the frequency of administering my testosterone cypionate, where I like to administer it, how to make sure my blood work looks good relative to my side effect relief and my symptom relief, side effect profile rather. I'm dialed in with my TRT. I recently discovered late April that I had no testosterone essentially in my body. And it was a shocker for me. Now, it wasn't a shocker as far as how I was doing mentally and emotionally and physically, which I'm going to talk about in this video, but I didn't realize that could happen on TRT. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about some very, very obvious red flags that I'm not entirely sure why I didn't acknowledge when it comes to this batch of testosterone that I had. But I'm going to talk to you about what I've learned, what I did, what you can do to get your own labs, and how I'm doing now. Basically, I crash mentally, emotionally, and physically on TRT while administering regular, routine, twice a week dosages of my testosterone cypionate via injection. And I don't want this to happen to other people if I can help it. We're just going to get into it. I'm going to talk about my blood work, my lab work, so you guys are going to see exactly what I saw when I got my return and the build up to it. Welcome to the video. My name is Noah, and thank you guys for being here. Hope you're well. Okay, so like I said, I've been on TRT forever, and I've been a zombie on TRT in that it's just 120 to 140 milligrams a week split into two dosages, outer quadrant of my thighs. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for a long time. I do routine blood work. I'm good. And so I didn't anticipate that it was possible that my T could be crashing while on TRT. And I should have. Back in February, but mostly March, I started to notice that my mental health was declining a bit. Being one to not want to needlessly worry or panic or tell myself false stories that I can't prove, I just assumed, since I ruled out the TRT thing, right? I just assumed that I hadn't been sleeping enough, or I wasn't dealing with some thoughts or feelings that were troubling me, or my lifestyle was a little out of whack. I started to approach my mental health in a pretty natural, holistic way. Making sure I got better sleep, making sure I was up to date with my vitamin D, moving enough, communicating enough, staying current with myself, things that are just common practice for me. I thought I should start there. That made sense to me. But my mental health didn't improve. I kept it to myself, but I started to have some dark days that were reminiscent of yesteryear. They were reminiscent of when I was struggling with my mental health normally, in a routine sort of way. And it scared me, as one might imagine, coming from a history of suicidal depression and black tar anxiety and hopelessness and apathy and things like that. It made me nervous, but I wanted to be patient. And it progressively and steadily throughout March and into April, it got worse and worse and worse. So I was like, okay, I need to do something. And thankfully, I decided I would get my blood drawn on my own through direct labs and just make sure, just rule out low testosterone, because that was the big find. That was the needle in the haystack back in 2012 when they couldn't figure out what was wrong with my mind and why I wasn't recovering from my treatment-resistant depression and anxiety. So I used direct labs, which I'm going to plug in this video because that's my go-to resource for getting blood draws done on my own time without the need of a doctor. So direct labs, there's a link in the description, first link. You guys can click that link. It supports the channel, and it takes you to a landing page for direct labs where you can create an account for free, order any labs you want for free, print up your lab request, and then take it to an approved lab, which they have right there on their home screen. It'll show you where to find a lab. Quest Diagnostics is for me. I literally put mine in. It goes directly to their computer because I know where I go, and I just show up 2 hours later. I get my labs. I get my blood drawn, and about a day to 2 days later, I get my results, and if there's an issue, I take it to my doctor. That's what I do, and I encourage anyone out there who's curious about their hormone levels, who's curious about any other blood work, but doesn't want to go deal with the hassle of a doctor. You don't have to. You can just use this promo link. It supports the channel. It's actually a resource I use all the time. Like I said, it's how I rediscovered my low T, and take matters into your own hands. So do that. Thank you, Direct Labs, for supporting this video, and let's move on. I went and I got my blood drawn. via direct labs. And a couple days later, I got my results and I was shocked. Like legitimately, genuinely, like, huh? My total testosterone was 25. 25 total. The reference range is 250 to 1100 nanograms per deciliter. Nanograms. I typically live between, let's say, 750 and 950, something like that. I want to be optimal. I want to be healthy and high range. I don't want to be average. The average testosterone level of the typical man in this country, United States, is not good. It's not what it was 20 years ago. So my goal is always to be optimal. It was 25, which is shocking. My free testosterone, which is your bioavailable testosterone, the number you really need to pay close attention to, was 3.2. The reference range for that is 35 to 155. That was 3.2. So I had my answer again. It was very deja vu. I had my answer once more. My testosterone had bottomed out. Now here's when I started to come to terms with something that I've been neglecting, and this is one of the most important parts of this video. My vial looked weird from the moment I got it. This vial right here, this is the exact one. My vial of testosterone replacement therapy came to me a little bit cloudy from the moment I saw it. It also came to me, as you guys can see in the footage right here, with crystals. Now, I have never had my blood drawn and not had optimal levels of testosterone since starting. I've also seen these crystals to a slight degree, not to this degree, but to a slight degree before. These crystals can form when you store your testosterone in temperatures that are cooler than the recommended temperature for storing, which is 68 to 77 Fahrenheit. Occasionally the house gets colder, and you see some crystals, you hang onto the bottle in your hand for a while, you shake it around, and usually they mostly dissipate. Well, these crystals really didn't dissipate, and the temperature in my house was pretty consistent. The other thing is that my testosterone typically is very clear. You can see right through it, so to speak. It doesn't look like there's a lot going on as far as muddling your ability to look at it. It doesn't look cloudy, for lack of better words. This batch looked cloudy and had some crystals from the very, very beginning. Now, hindsight being 20/20, and not perhaps, this seems to be just a huge case of ignorance for me, or I don't even know what you'd call it that kept me from questioning this, but it seems obvious. And I took the vial to my doctor when I brought my blood work in, and he was blown away at my levels. He looked at the vial and within 2 seconds said this was a faulty batch. You had a faulty batch of testosterone. This was a contaminated batch. You should have never started pinning with this. And we theorize, or we speculate, that this was dead testosterone from the moment I had it. And so progressively over time, my mood started to crash as my testosterone stayed low enough, long enough for my brain to realize something was wrong. Now, what was tricky about this is that I convinced myself that the crystals were simply due to the storage thing. And the reason they weren't dissipating in my mind was because it'd been cold too long, and so it was going to be just fine. The tricky thing is that when you have testosterone in your body as long as I have, you reach an equilibrium state. You reach a steady state, perhaps is a better word, in that while it takes a while to ramp up and feel the effects of testosterone, inversely, it takes a while to feel the effects of low testosterone once you've had good testosterone. So for the first month, I felt fine, truly felt normal. Even though I was taking this testosterone that wasn't working anymore. I just felt completely and entirely normal. But starting around 4, 5, 6 weeks, I started to crash, which would coincide with everything I just told you. So we ordered new testosterone. We decided to go from these big ones to these small, tiny ones, single 1 ml vials, to preserve the testosterone better. And I'll make a separate video about this because I think that's an important point too. But once these things have been punctured, if it's not air sealed, just oxygen getting in there can impact the quality and the viability of testosterone. Now, that said, I've always used this, so this is just me now wanting to be extra cautious. But we went ahead and started treating with the new testosterone. And of course, within 2, 3, 4 weeks, my mood started to improve. But it was a pretty upsetting few weeks there. I'd say 6 weeks there. It got fairly upsetting mentally and emotionally for me. And it reminded me not to take my mental health for granted, which I can do from time to time because I'm human and I've been stable for a long time. So we are going to do our return labs soon. My doc put me up to 160 milligrams per deciliter, 160 milligrams of testosterone cypionate from the 120, 140 I was on, just to ramp things back up and see where we are. So I wonder what my levels are going to be. We're going to get that blood work soon. I'll make a video about it, but I just wanted to use this as a cautionary tale for you guys and empower you guys, whether you've started TRT or whether you're on TRT, to get routine blood work. Because I convinced myself that every 6 months or so was probably fine. My doctor would chirp at me, but we have a long-standing relationship. I'm going to be a lot more on top of it now. It's once a quarter period, every 3 months. I'll be using direct labs, and I'm going to find out what's going on with my testosterone, total and free, and my PSA, and my thyroid on my own terms, which I encourage you guys to do. Again, first link in the description. It is so easy. There's nothing more important than at least having the information. Make sure you know whether you're on TRT or not, what your hormone levels look like, particularly if you struggle with mental health or physical health. Find out. Use that link, create an account, search your labs. It's all very intuitive. It's right there on the website. Get that printout. Make sure you know which labs are close to you. You just punch in your zip code and they'll show you. Take that requisition in or call ahead and make sure they have it on their file already, which mine does at Quest Diagnostic, and get that information. If you're in trouble, take it to your provider. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate your guys' support, your time, your kindness. In the comment section below, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever noticed something that looked weird about your vial of testosterone? Did you immediately have a red flag? Were you so used to pinning and just going through this that you didn't even consider there to be a problem because it's pharma grade? It came from a pharmacy, right? I just assumed it was fine when it clearly wasn't, especially when you look at the new vial. It's like, oh, geez, it seems so obvious. And yeah, I'd love to hear your stories. And if you're struggling with mental health or physical health or your thoughts, your emotional wellness, just know that I'm rooting for you. As someone who has a history with it, I'll always root for you. We'll see you guys in the next video. I miss you. It's good to get back in front of the camera. And that's all I got. That's my story. Feeling better now, by the way. I think I said that. Feeling much better now, thankfully. And hopefully that doesn't happen again. All right, my friends, take care.